everyone. My name is Devika, and you're about to view a story that I wrote. It's called Storm, but before we watch it, here's some background on why I wrote it. I wrote Storm in order to sensitize young children about their peers who may have ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, which is a developmental disorder characterized by the person having difficulty controlling impulsive behavior, difficulty paying attention for extended periods of time, and they may be overly active. Through Storm, I try to show that children with ADHD possess their unique individual talents despite the hurdles that they face on a daily basis. I've used animal characters in this story in order to make it more interesting and to make it more relatable and easy to understand. I also added some illustrations to this story using stickers like these and stamps. I hope you find this story helpful whether you're a parent, educator, sibling, or student. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Storm had a rough beginning. As a foal, he lost his parents to a terrible landslide. He was the most beautiful horse that I had ever seen. His black mane looked like velvet. His blue eyes shined like sapphire. Yet, when I saw him, he was enclosed in an old barn, kept away from all the other horses. I had heard my parents talk about Storm, about how he was dangerous and unpredictable, and what a worthless purchase he had turned out to be. I was not allowed to go near him, and was instructed to see him from a distance, only through a dusty window at the back of the barn. But the moment I saw him, I could sense that something was wrong. I could see him struggling in the confined space, as if he was trying to run away from something, although there was nothing in there except a rusting pail of water, some old wagon wheels, and a trough of grains that no one ever refilled. He looked distressed and uneasy. He heaved as he neighed. His mane was knotted, but beautiful nonetheless. His energy was unimaginable. His hooves seemed like they'd never stop clicking. He reminded me of a sprinter in a race who couldn't wait to push off the starting blocks. My parents had warned me about Storm. They all had told me to stay away from him. They said he was dangerous. That was the reason why they had moved him away from the stables to that run-down barn. They were scared of him and thought that he was a beast, but I could see in his sapphire eyes that in fact Storm was much more scared of them. Storm wasn't dangerous, but unpredictable. I didn't understand how anyone could be so cruel to such a beautiful animal. He had been kept away from everyone ever since he was a colt, even from his own mother. I was obsessed with Storm. He was all I could think of. I'd run to the barn every day after school. His sapphire eyes, his energy, and the sound of his hooves. Oh, I could spend hours and hours simply staring at the magnificent creature. His energy energized me, even after a long and tiring day at school. I wanted to feed him. He must have been starving, but he didn't seem like he was ready to let anyone near him yet. I didn't want him to be afraid of me. I needed to gain his trust gradually. One day, I grabbed some carrots and snuck into the stable. All horses love carrots. I was sure that Storm would be no exception. I ran back to the barn as I hid the carrots behind me. I did not want my parents to see me near him, let alone treating him to goodies. As I approached the barn, I could hear and feel the ground tremble as Storm stomped his hooves into the ground. I unlatched the window and pushed it with all my might. It creaked open slowly. I stretched my hand out with the carrots. Storm ignored me and continued to run in circles in his enclosure. He appeared so majestic even in such ordinary activity. It appeared that he didn't have any brakes and just wanted to break away and run free. True to his name, he had all the characteristics of a storm: thundering, powerful, energetic, electric, and mysterious. I wondered how anyone could ever confine a storm, and for how long. I threw the carrots near his hooves. They worked like magic, and he came to an abrupt halt. I found that weird. How quickly he flip-flopped from one state to the next. He bent down, sniffed the carrots, and gobbled it all up at once. "You like carrots, Storm?" I asked as he trotted toward me for more. I gave him another one, and he accepted it willingly. I stretched my hand out to pet him, but the moment my hand touched him, he became wild once more. What had I done? Did I flip his switch? I thought we were making good progress. What had distracted him all of a sudden? Over the next few days, I kept up this ritual of bringing carrots. Over time, I felt that I had finally gained some of his trust when he started to eat the carrots right out of my hand. I understood that by being gentle and patient, I could bring about subtle changes in his behavior. Storm was not like the other horses, that was for sure. But he was also denied the love and care that the other horses in the stable received. Yet he seemed happy. His happiness made me happy. Nobody looked at Storm as a happy horse. They all found him dangerous. I wanted to show everyone that Storm was indeed different. He deserved a better life, a life where he was not denied love just because of his uniqueness. I had to find something where Storm would shine, something that proved to everyone that Storm was not dangerous. So, the next morning, as I opened the doors of the barn, I realized that the first step was to get Storm out of the old barn, something that would give him freedom that he craved. I was sure that he would love the open fields. I cautiously walked towards him with a bridle in my hands so that I could walk him to the fields. He immediately stepped back in resistance. I took another step, and this time he charged towards me and knocked the bridle out of my hand. Of course, he wanted to be free. He didn't want to be confined by the straps of the bridle. If he was strapped, he'd feel more restless than ever. I felt like I was beginning to understand him more. I buried the bridle under a stack of hay so that it did not distract him. Storm nodded his head madly and he whinnied happily. I gave him a carrot. He ate out of my hand again. Then I realized that he loved rewards. It appeared as if by showing him that I noticed his progress, it made him happy. We walked to the fields, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Storm darted away in full speed. He galloped like the wind. It was breathtaking. Then it struck me. Storm would make a magnificent racehorse. His speed was his strength. By racing, he would be channeling his boiling energy. It was the perfect solution. But the challenge remained. How would I put a saddle on his back? While I was confident that he would make a fine racehorse, would he allow a jockey on his back? That got me thinking. I went to the stable and restocked my carrots. This time, I got a saddle too. I knew that unless he learned to trust me, he would always resist my advances. I threw the carrot and Storm came rushing to it like a dog does to a bone. and kept feeding him carrots as I stroked his back. He enjoyed being stroked on his back. It distracted him from the saddle and the reins. As I picked up the saddle and gently placed it on his back, he shook it off immediately. I tried again and still had no luck. I had to think of another way. As I stroked his back, I rubbed the saddle against him so that it wouldn't seem like an alien object. This time, he didn't shake it off. I made it seem like the saddle was just an extension of my hand that was resting on his back. I did the same for the bridle this time. As I stroked his head, I attached it to him. He did not resist. Yay! He was ready. With a little brushing and grooming here and there, Storm would make the perfect racehorse. He was appealing to the eye and majestic in his ways. Again, I gave Storm a carrot. Every time he'd accept my reward, I felt closer to him. He seemed excited. I think Storm knew that he was being prepared to gallop, his favorite thing to do. This was one thing where I had his full attention. He wasn't getting restless or hyperactive. This time, he was focused and concentrated. For the first time, I climbed up and sat on him. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I grabbed the reins. I felt all-powerful sitting on him, yet helpless. Those rippling muscles and the rocking gait at times confused me as to who was in charge. Would I control him, or would he control me? I put my fears aside and took a deep breath. Then I gently tugged on the reins and whispered, "Go, Storm." In a flash, he set off like lightning, almost throwing me off. I could feel all his muscles explode underneath me. It felt as if I was getting churned inside a hurricane. As he trotted to a halt, I began to get my senses back. But Storm was calm as ever. I drained some of his energy by taking several rounds of the open field. After he had run to his heart's content, Storm trotted back. Then, out of nowhere, we were greeted by claps. Who was that? All this while I thought that Storm and I were all by ourselves. "Well done, both of you," the man said. I dismounted and walked up to the man. He said, "I'm Jay. I race horses. I came to the stable to look at some. He's a beauty." "He sure is. His name is Storm," I said proudly. "Well then, would Storm be ready for a new home?" he asked. This was Storm's big chance. He would finally get the life that he deserved as a racehorse. But I wasn't ready to say goodbye this early. I'm not too sure," I said reluctantly. "You'll always be welcome to visit. The county race is coming up. I'd like to begin training Storm as soon as possible." 1 year later. Look at him go! Look at him tear through the wind! Look at him gallop like lightning! "We have a new winner! We have Storm the new norm!" the commentator roars. The entire audience erupts into applause. I get up and clap endlessly. But I could barely hear myself in the din. Storm has become the center of attention. He is decorated by wreaths and photographers are queuing up to take his picture. I will never forget that marvelous sight. I'm glad he found his calling. I'm glad he broke through the shackles. I feel so happy and proud of him. As I head back home, the voice of the commentator rings in my ears. Storm the new norm. He really was the perfect storm.